is for the bravery of Lieutenant Colonel Theodore Roosevelt on July 1st, 1898. That was the day he led his volunteer troops, the Rough Riders, in taking San Juan Hill, which changed the course of the battle and the Spanish-American War. We are greatly honored to be joined today by members of the Roosevelt family, including Tweed Roosevelt, here to accept the Medal of Honor on behalf of his great-grandfather. This is the 37th Medal of Honor I have presented, but the first I presented in the recipient's old office, in front of a portrait of him in full battle gear. It is a tradition in the Roosevelt room that when a Democrat is in the White House, a portrait of Franklin Roosevelt hangs above the mantel, and when a Republican is here, Teddy Roosevelt occupies the hallowed spot. I chose to break with the tradition these last 8 years because I figured if we could have even half the luck and skill leading America into the 21st century that Theodore Roosevelt did in leading America into the 20th century, our nation would do just fine. TR was a larger-than-life figure who gave our nation a larger-than-life vision of our place in the world. Part of that vision was formed on San Juan Hill. His Rough Riders were made up of all kinds of Americans from all walks of life. They were considered unpolished and undisciplined, but they were true citizen soldiers. By taking San Juan Hill, eventually they forced the enemy fleet into the Battle of Santiago Bay, where it was routed. This led to the Spanish surrender and opened the era of America as a global power. 22 people won the Medal of Honor for actions that day. 2 high-ranking military officers who had won the Medal of Honor in earlier wars and who saw Theodore Roosevelt's bravery recommended him for the medal too. For some reason, the War Department never acted on the recommendation. Some say he didn't get it because of the bias the War Department had against volunteers. Others say it was because he ran afoul of the Secretary of War, who after the war was reluctant to allow the return of a number of American servicemen afflicted with yellow fever. Roosevelt publicly called for America to bring its heroes home, where they had a far better chance to recover. The administration had to reverse course, and it proved embarrassing to the Secretary. But while opinions about why he didn't receive the medal are mixed, opinion that he should have received it long ago is unanimous. So here in this room will stand 2 great bookends to his wide-ranging life: the Medal of Honor, America's highest honor for warriors, and the Nobel Peace Prize, the world's highest honor for peacemakers, which he won for his role in settling the Russo-Japanese War of 1905. This is a remarkable day, and I can't help but noting that for historical buffs, Theodore Roosevelt's son was the oldest man who landed on the beaches at Normandy on D-Day, where he also won the Medal of Honor. Tragically, he died shortly after that in his uniform doing his duty. We are profoundly grateful as Americans for this remarkable family, and I am honored that I had the chance before I left office to correct what I think is a significant historical error. I'd also like to thank all these people from New York who were in the Congress and other people from other states who did their part to see that it was done. And I thank all of you too. Nearly 100 years ago, standing in this place, I suppose I should also say this. The reason this was Theodore Roosevelt's office is that all the offices of the president were in the old White House until Teddy Roosevelt became president. But the country was bustling and growing, and so was his family. He had 5 kids and no place to work over there. His children were rambunctious like him. They even let goats and other animals run through the White House during regular time. And so they built the West Wing in 1902, believe it or not, as a temporary structure. But no one ever had the courage to go back to Congress again and ask for money to do it right. So it's held up pretty well for the last 99 years, and that's why this was President Theodore Roosevelt's office. Here's what he said way back then. "We know there are dangers ahead, as we know there are evils to fight and overcome. but stout of heart, we see across the dangers the great future that lies beyond, and we rejoice. Let these words continue to guide us as we go forth into a new century. May we continue to live up to the ideals for which both Andrew Jackson Smith and Theodore Roosevelt risked their lives. Major, please read the citation.
The President of the United States of America, authorized by Act of Congress, March 3, 1863, has awarded in the name of the Congress the Medal of Honor to Lieutenant Colonel Theodore Roosevelt, United States Army, for conspicuous gallantry and intrepidity at the risk of his life above and beyond the call of duty. Lieutenant Colonel Theodore Roosevelt distinguished himself by acts of bravery on 1 July 1898 near Santiago de Cuba, Republic of Cuba, while leading a daring charge up San Juan Hill. Lieutenant Colonel Roosevelt, in total disregard for his personal safety and accompanied by only 4 or 5 men, led a desperate and gallant charge up San Juan Hill, encouraging his troops to continue the assault through withering enemy fire over open countryside. Facing the enemy's heavy fire, he displayed extraordinary bravery throughout the charge and was the first to reach the enemy trenches, where he quickly killed one of the enemy with his pistol, allowing his men to continue the assault. His leadership and valor turned the tide in the Battle of San Juan Hill. Lieutenant Colonel Roosevelt's extraordinary heroism and devotion to duty are in keeping with the highest traditions of the military service and reflect great credit upon himself, his unit, and the United States Army.